So the Southerners are going to try to be a little aggressive too here. They really need to be aggressive in Tennessee, because if the Northern forces can establish a significant military presence, if they can really fortify and entrench those troops in northwest Tennessee, the South has a problem. So the Confederate Army of the Tennessee is going to attack now. And they are going to attack not from the hex they're in, because if they win, that's great. But if they win, the Union could retreat further down the Mississippi and that much closer to Memphis. This is close enough that a forced march, if the Union had a Western theater card, they could move 2, 3, and then force march their way into Memphis unopposed. That would be a problem. So the Confederate Army of the Tennessee needs to get between the Union Army of the Tennessee and Memphis. That's the most important thing right now. So the Confederate Army is going to move to this hex. The Union Army knows that it would like to be between the Confederates and Memphis. The problem is they also know that if they were to intercept the Confederates there and win the battle, they would be out of supply immediately because they would be too far away from the river. That wouldn't have any consequences until their next turn, but what it would do is oblige them to move their own army. And they know for a fact that they don't have a Western theater card, and they couldn't make it all the way down to Memphis. They could make it further down the Mississippi River, but they don't necessarily know that they don't want the Confederates to be between them and Cairo or them in southeastern Missouri either, or especially between them and Kentucky, because beginning at the beginning of the next turn, Kentucky is going to join the war on the Union side. So they're not going to intercept. So now the Confederate Army of the Tennessee moves into the Union Army of the Tennessee, and they're going to give battle. The Union can always try to withdraw, and they may as well, because they're not sitting on any fortifications or any entrenchments, so they're not going to lose any advantage from any prepared defensive network. So we're going to roll 2 die for a Union withdrawal. They're being commanded by Buell. Buell's going to have a +1 defensive modifier, so we're going to add 1 on the attempt to withdraw. Plus, they've got a cavalry unit with them, which I believe is going to give them an added bonus of trying to avoid battle of 2. Let me check on that. So the Union is actually going to forego any potential avoid battle roll, even though they're not fortified or entrenched and wouldn't have any penalty from failing that roll, because the only legal point of retreat right now would be into Columbus, Kentucky. I suppose they could move into New Madrid. So let's roll. So the Union force is going to add 1 to the die roll because Buell is the commanding officer, and he has a +1 offensive and defensive modifier. And they're also going to add 2 to the roll because of the presence of cavalry. Now, they have 2 sources, or 2 hexes where they could retreat to if this actually works. They could go to Columbus, Kentucky, which would be a problem because it would have the effect of bringing Kentucky into the war on the south side, or they could retreat to New Madrid. Now, there are naval units in New Madrid, but for all intents and purposes, it's as if they're in a whole different dimension, because from the rules, it appears that naval units and ground units of opposite sides can inhabit New Madrid at the same time. Also, if there were a fortification there, it wouldn't block Union naval control of that hex. And it's not treated as treating across a river or anything like that, because the river is in the middle of the hex. And New Madrid and Arkansas Post are both special in that way. Okay, so he needs to beat a 9. He gets to add 3 to this roll. He rolls a 10. That's a 13, so he can retreat. He's going to go back to New Madrid. So the Confederate Army of the Tennessee has moved once, twice. It can now move a 3rd time. It has up to 4 movement points. So he's going to advance into New Madrid again. Buell is going to attempt to avoid again. So his total die roll modifier now is a +5. He has +2 modifier because he's already on the move. He has momentum. So he rolls an 8 + 5 is a 13, so also successful. So he's going to retreat here to Buffington. So now the Confederates have 1, 2, 3. They have 1 more movement point. They can still try to press battle. I don't think they will press battle at this point. I think they're on the offensive. They're in Missouri. They're happy being there where they are, and I think that they're going to they would like to have enough movement points left to entrench, but they don't. So instead, they're going to use a west card. Technically speaking, New Madrid is in the west if you look at the rules. So they're going to use a west card so that they have enough movement points there to entrench in New Madrid. So that was 2 activations for the south, but they really can't afford to ignore the eastern theater here. They really need to do something about Burnside's stack sitting opposite of Longstreet, because there's the potential for a significant amount of damage to that stack. And they are going to be very bold. They're going to take Bragg, move him up 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, normally to place a control marker, he'd have to spend movement points, but because he's removing an enemy control marker in a friendly state, he doesn't have to do that. It just comes right off the map. So now, at the end of the next Union turn, the Union player will find that Burnside's stack is going to be out of supply if he can't get back to within supply range.